Most wars make it into our history books. They're defined by their massive scale, their brutal battles, or the revolutionary ideas they're fought over. We know the names, the dates, and the faces of the heroes and villains. But what about the conflicts that history seems to have forgotten, or maybe tried to bury? The wars whispered about in footnotes, sparked by the bizarre, the absurd, or the just plain inexplicable. Today, we're peeling back the layers on these strange military footnotes to answer the question, what sparked the most mysterious war in history? The contender from the absurd, the War of the Stray Dog. Let's kick things off with a conflict that sounds less like military history and more like a rejected comedy sketch. Picture the Balkans in 1925. The whole region is a tinderbox. The wounds of World War I are still raw, and the borders between nations like Greece and Bulgaria are basically lines drawn in anger. And the spark that lit the fuse? According to the most popular version of the story, it was a dog. The War of the Stray Dog started on October 18, 1925. As the story goes, a Greek soldier saw his dog bolt across the border into Bulgarian territory. Without a second thought, the soldier chased after it. Bulgarian border guards, already on high alert, saw a foreign soldier running onto their soil and, assuming the worst, opened fire, killing him instantly. Now, there is another version of events. Some accounts claim Bulgarian soldiers actually crossed the border first, attacking a Greek outpost. The truth of that first moment is a minor mystery in itself. But what happened next isn't a mystery at all. Things escalated fast. Outraged, the Greek government, led by the hardline general Theodoros Pangalos, issued a harsh ultimatum to Bulgaria. Punish the soldiers, apologize, and pay 2 million French francs in compensation. Bulgaria expressed regret, but said no to the demands, suggesting a joint investigation instead. Greece refused. When the 48-hour deadline ran out, Greece launched a full-scale invasion, with troops marching toward the strategic town of Petric. For a moment, it looked like the Balkans were about to be plunged into another bloody war, all because of a runaway dog. The fighting began to stack up casualties. Around 50 people were killed, a mix of soldiers and Bulgarian civilians caught in the crossfire. So what stopped it? The brand new League of Nations. This was one of its first major tests. The League condemned the Greek invasion, demanded a ceasefire, and told Greek troops to get out. Facing international pressure, Greece complied. In the end, they were the ones who had to pay reparations to Bulgaria. The War of the Stray Dog is mysterious because of its baffling absurdity. How could one small incident spiral so violently? The mystery really lies in the dangerous mix of pride, nationalism, and paranoia gripping the region. The dog wasn't the cause of the war. It was just the match thrown onto a landscape soaked in gasoline. It's a chilling reminder of how fragile peace can be. The contender from the skies, the Battle of Los Angeles. Next up, we're jumping from the Balkan Mountains to Los Angeles during the darkest days of World War II. It's February 1942, just a few months after Pearl Harbor, and you could feel the fear on the West Coast. People were terrified of surprise attacks and imminent invasions. That fear got a lot more real on February 23rd, when a Japanese submarine surfaced and shelled an oil field near Santa Barbara. The damage was minimal, but the psychological impact was huge. The war wasn't over there anymore. It was here. Less than 24 hours later, the panic boiled over. Late on February 24th, air raid sirens blared across Los Angeles. Radar had picked up an unidentified object 120 miles west of the city. What followed was hours of pure chaos. The city went into a total blackout. Then the sky exploded. The 37th Coastal Artillery Brigade opened fire, launching a terrifying barrage into the night. Over the next few hours, they fired more than 1,400 anti-aircraft shells. Searchlights frantically sliced through the darkness, all converging on Well, that's the mystery. Eyewitness accounts were all over the place. Some people swore they saw Japanese bombers. Others described a single, large, slow-moving object. Newspapers ran dramatic photos of searchlight beams hitting a single point in the sky. But when the sun rose, the mystery only deepened. There was no wreckage, no downed planes, no bomb craters. The only damage was from friendly fire buildings, peppered with shrapnel from shells raining back down on the city. Tragically, the panic was deadly. 3 people died in car accidents during the blackout, and 2 others died from heart attacks. So, what did the military fire 1,400 shells at? The official explanations only made things more confusing. Right after, the Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox, called it a false alarm caused by war nerves. But then the Secretary of War, Henry Stimson, contradicted him, saying up to 15 unidentified aircraft had flown over the city. The most common explanation to emerge over the years is that a wayward weather balloon drifted over the city. In the state of high alert, someone mistook it for a threat. Once the first battery opened fire, the exploding shells were mistaken by other batteries for enemy planes, creating a chain reaction of trigger-happy gunners. But for a lot of people, that story just doesn't add up. Could thousands of trained soldiers really mistake a weather balloon for an enemy attack? And what about those initial radar returns? Unsurprisingly, the Battle of Los Angeles has become a cornerstone of modern UFO lore. Many believe the object was an extraterrestrial craft that was simply observing the chaos. The Battle of Los Angeles is a war with no enemy, fought against shadows and fear. The mystery isn't who won or lost, but what was even going on. Was it mass hysteria, a secret cover-up, or something not of this world? The contender from legend, the Trojan War. Now we journey much further back, to the hazy line where history blurs into myth. Our next candidate is maybe the most famous war ever fought, and one whose very existence is a huge mystery. The Trojan War. For centuries, the story immortalized by Homer in the Iliad was just that, a story. The beautiful Helen of Sparta is abducted by Paris, a prince of Troy. In response, a huge alliance of Greek kings sails 1,000 ships to get her back. For 10 long years, they lay siege to Troy. Heroes like Achilles and Hector clash, and it all ends with the legendary Trojan horse. For most of history, people accepted it as fact. But by the 19th century, academics had written it off as a foundational myth, like Atlantis. Troy was just a legend. That all changed in the 1870s. A wealthy German businessman and amateur archaeologist, Heinrich Schliemann, was obsessed with Homer's poems and convinced Troy was real. Guided by clues in the Iliad, he started digging at a hill in modern-day Turkey called Hisarlik, and against all odds, he found it. Not one city, but layers of them, and one layer, now known as Troy Via, showed clear signs of a violent destruction. A massive fire, right around the time the war was said to have happened. Suddenly, the myth had a location. But does a real Troy mean there was a real Trojan War? That's the mystery that still puzzles us. We have a rich city that was burned to the ground in the late Bronze Age. But there's no smoking gun. No ancient records mention a decade-long war over a queen. There are no tablets listing King Priam or Prince Hector. And there certainly isn't a single splinter of a giant wooden horse. Historians are split. Many think the story has a historical core, maybe not an epic war over a woman, but a prolonged conflict over trade routes that got embellished over centuries. Others think trying to match a poem to archaeology is a fool's errand. The Trojan War is a mystery of origins. Was it sparked by a kidnapped queen? Or was that just a poetic excuse for a brutal everyday war over money and power? The biggest mystery is whether the war we know even happened at all. It exists in a strange state, both a foundational story of Western literature and a historical event that might be pure fiction. The contender from the deep, the vanishing of the USS Cyclops. Not all military mysteries are about the start of a conflict. Some are about the deafening silence at the end. This is a ghost story from the high seas that has baffled investigators for over a century. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops. The Cyclops wasn't a warship. It was a massive 540-foot-long collier built to haul coal for the U.S. Navy's fleet. In early 1918, during World War I, it was on a critical mission in Brazil. On its return journey, it was loaded with 11,000 tons of dense manganese ore, vital for making steel. Aboard were 306 crew members and passengers. The ship made a quick, unscheduled stop in Barbados and left on March 4th, heading for Baltimore. And then it just vanished. Completely, utterly, without a trace. There was no SOS, no wreckage, no lifeboats, not a single body. One of the largest ships in the Navy had simply sailed into the horizon and ceased to exist. To this day, it remains the single largest loss of life on a U.S. Navy ship that didn't involve combat. At first, the obvious theory was a German U-boat. But after the war, German naval records showed no U-boats in the area at the time. No commander claimed the kill. So investigators looked at other possibilities. One leading theory is structural failure. The ship was designed for coal, which is much lighter than manganese ore. Before leaving Brazil, the ship's commander, George W. Worley, had reported that one of the engines had a cracked cylinder. Maybe a storm hit the overstressed ship just right, snapping it in two so fast that no one could even send a distress call. Then there's the human element. Commander Worley was known to be an erratic leader, and there were rumors of a possible mutiny. Could that have doomed the ship? And of course, there's the most famous explanation. The Cyclops disappeared inside what we now call the Bermuda Triangle, becoming a foundational piece of its legend. The mystery of the USS Cyclops is total. It's not a why, but a how and a where. A ship full of people, a piece of American naval power, was erased from the world, leaving a gaping hole in the historical record. Section 5. The Ultimate Contender, The Lost Army of Cambyses II. We've seen mysteries sparked by absurdity, fear, and legend. But our final contender is an enigma on a whole different scale. It's the story of the lost army of the Persian king, Cambyses II. The year is 525 BCE. The mighty Persian Empire has just conquered Egypt. But Cambyses' work isn't done. Deep in the desert is the Siwa Oasis, home to the revered oracle of Ammon. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, the priests there defied Cambyses, and he decided to make an example of them. From the city of Thebes, he dispatched a massive army. Herodotus puts the number at 50,000 soldiers, though modern historians suspect the real number was smaller, but still significant. Their mission was simple: cross the desert and destroy the oracle. The army marched for 7 days, reached an oasis to resupply, and then marched back out into the desert. They were never seen again. According to Herodotus, the only source for this story, their fate was absolute. He writes that a massive sandstorm rose up and entirely covered up the troops and caused them wholly to disappear. An entire army swallowed by the Sahara. For centuries, many scholars dismissed this as a myth, a cautionary tale about a king whose arrogance was punished by the gods. After all, how does an army of that size vanish without a trace? For decades, searches have found nothing. But a compelling new theory reframes the mystery. Archaeologist Olaf Kaper suggests the army wasn't lost to a sandstorm at all. He argues they were ambushed and defeated by Egyptian rebels. The story of the sandstorm, he proposes, was a brilliant piece of propaganda cooked up by the next Persian king, Darius I, to cover up the humiliating defeat of his predecessor. This provides a rational explanation, turning a myth into a story of political spin. And yet, even with this theory, the central mystery is unsolved. There is still no definitive proof. No mass grave of soldiers has ever been found. The lost army of Cambyses remains just that, lost. So after all that, what sparked the most mysterious war in history? The War of the Stray Dog was born from absurdity, the Battle of Los Angeles from fear, and the Trojan War from a legend that sits uncomfortably between fact and fiction. The loss of the USS Cyclops is a chilling mystery of complete silence. Each is a profound enigma. But one case stands apart. The disappearance of Cambyses II's army is more than an unsolved case. It's a black hole in the historical record. An entire army, tasked with an act of war, didn't just lose. It vanished so completely that for over 2,500 years, we're left to debate if it was destroyed by a battle, a sandstorm, or if the story Herodotus told was even true to begin with. It wasn't a war fought and lost. It was a war that never arrived. Its spark was a king's fury, but its outcome is a perfect, terrifying void. For that reason, the mission to destroy the Oracle of Siwa, the final campaign of the lost Persian army, stands as the most mysterious act of war ever recorded. Of course, history is filled with other strange conflicts. The Pig War, the War of the Bucket. If you think another conflict deserves the title of most mysterious, tell us which one and why in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, dive into the weird footnotes of history. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation. These stories of lost armies and phantom battles fascinate us because they remind us that history isn't a complete, perfect record. It's a puzzle with missing pieces. These mysteries represent the limits of our knowledge, the spaces where hard facts give way to speculation, myth, and legend. They show us that no matter how much we study, the past will always hold secrets that are lost to time, buried forever under shifting sands or the silent depths of the ocean.